Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we really try to peel back the layers on success stories, the ones that genuinely changed how industries work. And today, we've got a pretty remarkable question driving us. How does someone, starting with just $1,000 in a college dorm room,
Yeah,
how do they turn that into, well, a $116.6 billion empire?
it's staggering, isn't it?
And not just build wealth, but actually rewrite the rules of the entire tech world. We're diving deep into the mind of Michael Dell.
Yeah, it's an absolutely astonishing path he took. And we're not just looking at Michael Dell as, some smart guy who put computers together. He's really an architect.
An architect.
Right. He didn't just dream up what tech could do. He meticulously re-engineered how it's made, how it's sold, and maybe the most critical piece, how you scale something like that. From a dorm room idea to just global dominance.
That is the perfect way to frame it. So, okay, let's paint the picture. It's 1984, University of Texas. Most students, you figure they're probably worried about midterms, maybe planning their weekend.
Standard college stuff.
Right. But Michael Dell, he's already elbow deep in building a business right there from his dorm room. And he had this audacious, almost kind of simple belief.
Deceptively simple, maybe.
Yeah, that computers didn't need to be sold in traditional retail stores.
Yeah.
He had exactly $1,000 in his pocket. That was it. And he set out to prove everyone wrong.
And that starting point,
Yeah.
that specific number, the $1,000, it's absolutely fundamental. It wasn't just, oh, I don't have much money. It became this driving force. It compelled him to be disciplined, direct, incredibly efficient right from day one.
It forced innovation where others just weren't looking.
Exactly. And the boring stuff, maybe. The process.
Okay, so our mission today for this deep dive, it isn't just to, stare slack-jawed at Michael Dell's $116.6 billion net worth. That's as of June 2025, by the way.
Which is admittedly hard not to stare at.
It definitely commands attention,
Yeah.
but that wealth, huge as it is, it's really a consequence, right? It's not the core story we're after.
Right. It's the outcome, not the engine.
Exactly. We're here to explore the profound vision, the meticulous execution, and that relentless drive to innovate that let Dell completely reinvent the tech industry. And here's the really wild part. He did this not by inventing some flashy new gadget, the next iPhone or whatever, not groundbreaking software, but by rethinking and optimizing the entire system around the product.
That's the critical distinction. That's what we really need to unpack today. We'll look at how he just radically shifted global supply chains, how he used this kind of financial ingenuity that was frankly revolutionary at the time, and ultimately how he built one of the world's largest private tech empires for a while there. This dive, it's really about illuminating the mindset behind it all.
Okay, so what are those key themes?
Well, unwavering focus, for one, a relentless obsession with reducing friction, cutting out steps in every single process, and this uncanny knack for turning bold, simple ideas into massive, sustained competitive advantage.
Okay, let's start digging. Let's go right back to ground zero. The dorm room. What was that quiet observation, the thing maybe others missed, that sparked everything and really laid the groundwork for Dell's whole approach, this doing more with less financial mindset?
Yeah, it was quiet, almost subtle, but incredibly profound. And remember, this is a 19-year-old kid, basically, early 1980s, University of Texas dorm. Michael Dell noticed something fundamental that, well, pretty much everyone else in the brand new PC market seemed to overlook.
Which was?
People were drastically overpaying for personal computers, just flat out paying too much. And just as importantly, they didn't really get what they were buying. The tech was complex, the sales process was confusing.
Right.
And that traditional retail model just created this huge gap between the actual cost of the machine and the value the customer perceived.
Okay, so let's picture that landscape. Early 80s, you had the big players, right?
Yeah.
IBM, Compaq, Apple.
Right.
They were the giants. How are they operating then? What did that traditional model look like?
Okay. Well, the status quo was largely what you'd call a push model. These huge companies, they'd manufacture massive quantities of expensive machines. Often they weren't very customizable. You got what you got.
Standard configuration.
Exactly. Then they'd ship these pallets of computers to giant warehouses. Then they'd distribute them through this whole network of brick and mortar retailers. And every single step in that chain
Added cost.
added significant cost. Warehousing, advertising, paying for shelf space in the store, multiple middlemen taking their cut. A huge chunk of the final price you paid as a customer wasn't actually for the computer's parts or the engineering. It was for all the inefficiencies baked into that multi-layered distribution
Oh,
system.
wow.
And it tied up immense amounts of capital for the manufacturers too, right? All that money just sitting there as inventory on shelves or in warehouses. They were basically making a big bet on what people might buy, then pushing it out there and hoping for the best.
And Dell, with his $1,000, looks at all that and just thinks, this is crazy. There has to be a better way.
That's his core disruptive belief, isn't it? That computers didn't need stores.
Precisely. And you have to understand how counterintuitive that was back then. It was almost like heresy. The whole industry was built on retail presence, on having your boxes on the shelf.
Right.
His question was so simple, though. If customers knew what they wanted, or if you could help them figure out exactly what they needed, why should they pay this massive premium for a physical store and this super complex, capital-intensive distribution chain?
He saw the waste.
He saw the waste. He recognized the real inefficiency, and therefore the real opportunity for profit wasn't just in tweaking the hardware. It was overwhelmingly in the process of getting that hardware to the customer. And that really shows his early, almost innate focus on extreme efficiency, directness.
Okay, so belief is one thing. How did he actually do it? From a dorm room, with, again, literally $1,000 and zero established reputation. That seems like the impossible part. It started incredibly hands-on, like really grassroots efforts that perfectly embody that doing more with less idea. He's 19. He bypasses all traditional distribution. He'd order parts, wholesale, hard drives, memory chips, motherboards straight from the manufacturers.
Cutting out the middleman right there.
Immediately. Then, and this is absolutely crucial, he assembled custom PCs on demand. He wasn't building up a speculative inventory, hoping someone would want that specific configuration.
He waited for the order first?
He waited for the customer's specific order. Maybe it's a doctor needing a certain amount of RAM, or a student on a tight budget, or a small office with particular software needs. Then he'd build it to their exact specs.
And how did people even find him?
His marketing was as basic and personal as you can imagine, running tiny ads in local newspapers, taking calls himself late at night on his dorm phone. And get this remarkably, he'd often personally deliver the machines to customers the very next day.
Wow, so Michael Dell, the founder, driving around Austin delivering PCs.
Can you picture it? That's how it started. Talk about direct connection.
That's an incredible image. But you mentioned something even more revolutionary than just cutting out the middleman. Something about the cash flow. You called it negative working capital. This sounds like where the financial genius really kicks in, like becomes a strategic weapon. Unpack that for us.
Okay, yeah. This is truly where Michael Dell's, let's call it genius for financial engineering, really shines. It set him apart from basically every other manufacturer at the time. So traditional manufacturers, they operated in what's called a positive working capital model. Meaning they would build huge inventories of computers first. They'd spend their own money, often millions, even billions of dollars, tying up all that capital, essentially betting that these machines would eventually sell. Their cash was locked up in raw materials, in half-finished computers, and finished goods sitting in boxes, just waiting to be converted back into cash.
So they needed loans, investors.
Exactly. This almost always required substantial loans from banks or big investments, which meant interest costs and significant financial risk. They were essentially paying to hold on to their own products, hoping for a sale, and often going into debt to do it.
Whoa, so that's the old way. How did Dell flip that?
Dell flipped it completely. His revolutionary approach was simple in concept, but radical in practice. Take the orders first. Customers would configure their custom machine online or over the phone eventually, and critically, they'd pay him upfront for it.
Oh, upfront.
Upfront. Only after he received that payment, that customer's cash, would Dell then use that money to purchase the parts and build the machine.
Hold on. So he wasn't using his own capital? Or borrowed capital?
Barely any. Customers were effectively funding his entire supply chain and manufacturing process before he even started building. That's the core idea of negative working capital. He collected cash from customers before he had to pay his suppliers or incur the costs to produce the goods.
It's like being paid to build something before you even buy the wood.
That's a great analogy. Instead of being a bank for his own inventory, his customers effectively became the bank for his operations. It wasn't just a small competitive edge. It was a fundamental reimagining of the entire business model's financial structure.
Wow. Okay, so that's huge. What were the ripple effects of that? This direct-to-consumer, build-to-order model fueled by negative working capital.
The ripple effects were Profound, and they compounded incredibly fast. First, obviously, cost efficiency. No retail markups, minimal warehousing, almost zero inventory holding costs. Dell could offer significantly lower prices to customers
And still make good money.
and still maintain higher profit margins for himself. Second, capital efficiency. With almost no inventory backlog, his capital wasn't stuck in unsold stock. This meant incredibly fast cash turnover. Cash just flowed through the business robustly from day one. This let him reinvest quickly, grow aggressively without taking on massive debt.
Which is crucial for a startup.
Absolutely critical. And third, customer responsiveness. This is huge too. Selling directly, building to order. It gave Dell these incredibly fast, direct feedback loops. Every single order was a piece of real-time data.
Like what configurations were popular, what upgrades people wanted.
Exactly. What components were in demand, what emerging needs customers had. This allowed for constant, iterative improvement of products and services based on direct input. He wasn't relying on slow market research reports or expensive guesswork like his competitors.
He wasn't guessing what the market wanted. He was listening to it minute by minute, order by order, at scale.
Precisely. It became this built-in market intelligence system.
And this whole approach, it just rocketed him into the big leagues incredibly fast, didn't it? How quick was that snowball effect?
It snowballed with, frankly, remarkable speed.
Mm.
By 1992, remember, that's just 8 years after starting in the dorm room, Michael Dell, at just 27 years old, became the youngest CEO ever to make the Fortune 500 list.
Youngest ever. Wow.
And the growth just kept going, defying all the industry norms. By the early 2000s, Dell Inc. was generating over $60 million in revenue. Not per year, per day.
$60 million a day.
Per day. And achieving profit margins that often exceeded those of much older, much more established companies that had been around for decades. This wasn't just growth. It was hyper-efficient, cash-generating growth machine.
And that initial lean financial discipline, that doing more with less idea from the dorm room, it stayed with him, right? It wasn't just a startup tactic he abandoned when they got big.
Absolutely not. He never lost that mindset. Even when dealing with billions in revenue, his approach to finance remained incredibly lean, sharp, brutally logical. He famously said, and this quote really sums it up, "We were never about growth for the sake of growth. It was always about efficiency, clarity, and control."
Efficiency, clarity, control.
That clarity, that unwavering financial discipline, applied consistently over 4 decades. It just compounded exponentially. You can draw a direct, almost unbroken line from that initial $1,000 in savings to his reported $116.6 billion net worth as of June 2025.
It wasn't luck. It wasn't just VC money.
No. He didn't build his empire on massive venture capital rounds or by burning through investor cash like so many tech companies do. He made his own cash work smarter, harder, and more strategically than pretty much anyone else. He fundamentally understood that capital efficiency itself could be the core competitive weapon.
That's such a powerful takeaway. For anyone, really, building an empire not on height, but on this incredibly sound, almost revolutionary financial foundation from day one,
Right?
making every dollar sweat.
Indeed. It really is a testament to seeing financial discipline as innovation, not just some boring operational necessity.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, because when we usually talk about tech innovation, right, our minds jump to, I don't know, the iPhone, a new AI model, some groundbreaking software.
Or flashy stuff.
The flashy stuff. But Michael Dell really redefined what innovation even meant in the tech world. He wasn't an inventor in that traditional sense, was he?
No, not in the slightest. And that's exactly what makes his story so fascinating and, frankly, instructive. Michael Dell did not invent the personal computer. He didn't create a revolutionary operating system like Windows or iOS. He didn't design a game-changing new chip.
So what was his genius then?
His genius was in playing a totally different game, a quieter game, a smarter game, and strategically, maybe a far more dangerous game, as some sources put it. He completely re-engineered and optimized the system around the product.
Okay, that's the key distinction again. While everyone else was maybe obsessed with the specs, the features, the next big gadget,
Right.
Dell was relentlessly obsessed with the how. How is this thing made? How is it sold? How does it get to the customer? He looked at that whole chain from components to the end user and just found a profoundly better, more efficient way to do it.
Exactly. Back in the 80s and 90s, think about it. Most PC makers operated like these traditional, kind of isolated factories. They'd churn out computers in bulk, ship them to warehouses, cross their fingers, and hope they sold. It was that push model we talked about.
Leading to waste or shortages.
Right. Costly excess inventory sitting around, or maybe they didn't make enough of the popular models and had stockouts. Dell completely flipped that whole equation with his build-to-order model. He created a pull system driven by actual customer demand.
So talk more about build to order from an innovation perspective, because it's clearly more than just saving money, right? What made it innovative?
Oh, absolutely. From an innovation standpoint, build-to-order enabled something pretty radical back then. Massive customization at scale.
Hmm.
Customers could go and directly configure their own PCs, pick the exact memory, the hard drive size, maybe specific software bundles.
Get exactly what they needed, nothing they didn't.
Precisely. And Dell would then assemble that unique machine after the order was placed. This wasn't just about saving a few bucks, it was about delivering precisely what the customer wanted, removing unnecessary features or components they didn't need, and doing it with incredible speed and efficiency.
Which, okay, gives them those operational advantages, lower inventory, faster cash.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing it's also about this real-time, almost psychic connection to what the market actually wants.
Exactly. That model led to way lower inventory costs, obviously, because they weren't building machines hoping they'd sell. It provided real-time customization that directly met very specific market needs, rather than taking a wild guess at what some broad market segment might want weeks or months down the line.
Hmm.
And yes, it accelerated cash flow because they got paid up front. But maybe the most powerful innovation baked into this model was that continuous direct feedback loop we touched on earlier.
A listening machine.
The listening machine. While competitors were basically guessing demand based on forecasts and market reports, Dell was listening to it directly. At scale,
Well,
every single order,
yeah.
every configuration chosen, every upgrade picked, every question a customer asked that was invaluable data.
So it became this powerful engine for continuous improvement,
Yeah.
for innovation.
Absolutely. It allowed them to tweak their product offerings, adjust their component sourcing, even guide their R&D much, much faster than their rivals who were operating in the dark, relatively speaking. They had their finger right on the pulse.
And this non-inventor strategy, this deep optimization game, it led to just crushing market dominance in PCs, didn't it?
Oh, completely. By the late 90s, Dell was just absolutely dominating the PC market. The numbers are stark. In 2001, Michael Dell's company officially overtook Compaq to become the #1 PC seller globally.
#1 worldwide.
Yep. And they were generating over $30 billion in annual revenue by then. And again, this wasn't because they invented some flashy new product or some disruptive new tech category. It was achieved through superior, relentless, continuous optimization of a fundamentally more efficient system. They just out-executed everybody.
But then something even bigger happened, a massive strategic pivot that really cemented Dell's place, not just in PCs, but across the whole evolving tech landscape.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the EMC masterstroke in 2016.
EMC.
What exactly was that deal, and why was it so incredibly important for Dell's long-term vision?
The EMC acquisition in 2016 was, historic by any definition. $67 billion.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the largest tech merger ever.
$57 billion.
Yeah, it was incredibly bold, definitely carried risks, but it was brilliantly aligned with Michael Dell's foresight about where the tech world was actually headed beyond just consumer devices.
So why EMC? What was the strategic why behind such a colossal move? Especially when, like you said, the popular tech story was all about smartphones, apps, the consumer side of things.
This is where you really see Michael Dell's long-range thinking. While the headlines and, frankly, a lot of the tech world were obsessed with consumer gadgets and the app economy, he saw something deeper happening, a more fundamental shift, like tectonic plates moving underneath everything. He recognized the future wasn't just about the devices in people's hands. It was about the massive underlying data infrastructure that powered absolutely everything. Data was just exploding exponentially, and all that data needed to be stored, managed, processed, secured, analyzed on an almost unimaginable scale.
And EMC was key to that.
EMC was a giant in enterprise storage, but crucially, they also owned VMware.
VMware. Huge in virtualization and cloud software.
Exactly. So acquiring EMC instantly vaulted Dell beyond just hardware. It pushed them deep into the high-margin, super-critical, enterprise-grade world of cloud computing, powerful servers, massive storage systems, and cybersecurity. It was a strategic acquisition, yes, but more than that, it was about integrating capabilities to dominate a future market segment he saw coming way before many others did.
So it wasn't about buying another hardware company. It was about buying the building blocks for the entire digital backbone of the future economy.
That's a perfect way to put it. It meant Dell could now go to large companies, to governments, to institutions, and offer them the entire foundational stack, from the powerful servers running their most critical applications,
Mm-hmm.
to the vast storage arrays securing their essential data, to the software that virtualized their operations for efficiency, and the cybersecurity to protect it all. They essentially became the one-stop shop for comprehensive digital infrastructure.
Creating huge customer stickiness, I imagine.
Well,
Recurring revenue, moving way beyond the more commoditized PC business.
absolutely. Imagine being able to provide a secure end-to-end solution for a company's entire digital footprint. That's the kind of power and market position they acquired almost overnight.
And he didn't just stop with the acquisition itself. He made some incredibly audacious corporate moves around that time too, right? Like taking the company private back in 2013 before the EMC deal. That seemed like a massive gamble.
Oh, it was profoundly bold. Probably one of the most daring moves in modern corporate history, frankly. Taking Dell private in 2013 allowed him to do something crucial: escape the relentless short-term pressure of Wall Street.
Quarterly earnings cycle.
Exactly. Public companies often feel forced to prioritize immediate profits, optics, stuff that looks good this quarter, and that can severely hamstring long-term strategic investments, especially painful but necessary restructuring or massive integrations like EMC.
So going private gave him breathing room.
It gave him freedom. It gave him the essential runway to focus on the monumental task of integrating EMC, making potentially disruptive changes, investing heavily in R&D for the long haul, all without constant public scrutiny or the threat of activist investors messing things up. It was about securing the company's long-term future, insulated from the market's often fickle, short-term judgment.
And then, after doing all that heavy lifting, integrating, transforming, stabilizing, he brings Dell Technologies back to the public markets in 2018. It really shows a mastery of capital markets, not just tech strategy.
It really does. By 2018, the company he brought back public was fundamentally different. It was leaner, sharper, way more diversified, and strategically positioned for the future compared to the PC company it had been. It was a very strategic re-entry signaling, okay, we've done the hard work in private, now we're ready for long-term growth in these critical enterprise areas.
So today, when we think of Dell Technologies, it's not just the PC company from the 90s. It's this hybrid cloud empire.
Right. Helping companies manage data both on their own servers and in public clouds, optimizing for flexibility and cost.
It's powering enterprise AI, edge computing.
Yep. Bringing computing power closer to where data is generated. Think smart factories, IoT devices, cutting down latency.
And just underpinning global IT infrastructure. And the incredible takeaway, again, is Michael Dell never really needed to invent a single groundbreaking product category. He just identified systemic flaws, saw future needs before others, and optimized everything better than anyone else.
It's such a powerful lesson about what innovation really means. It tells you that innovation isn't solely about creating something brand new out of thin air. It's also about perfecting what already exists, optimizing the heck out of processes, spotting underserved needs, and just executing flawlessly. That's a form of genius that often gets overlooked in the flashy world of tech.
Ideas are easy. Execution is everything. That's Michael Dell's mantra, isn't it? It sounds almost deceptively simple. But behind that calm demeanor, sources say there's this almost, monastic obsession with focus.
Indeed, he's not known for being loud or flashy, no impulsive decisions, no grandstanding. He's methodical, he's understated, incredibly intentional. And his daily routine, even now after 4 decades running this massive company, it really reflects this deep commitment to focus. Deliberate action, it's remarkably consistent, almost like a ritual.
Tell us about that routine. What does a typical day actually look like for someone who built a, $116.6 billion empire? How does he protect that focus?
Well, he starts his mornings remarkably early, usually around 7:00 a.m. And critically, the first thing he does isn't jumping into emails or calls or meetings.
Well, what then?
The first hour of his day is dedicated to what he calls clarity time.
Clarity time.
Yeah, it's a period reserved for deep, solitary thought, focused entirely on the single most important decision or problem he needs to tackle for the company. No distractions allowed. No delegation during that hour. Just concentrated strategic thinking before the rest of the world really wakes up and starts demanding his attention.
So he literally schedules time every single day just to think strategically without interruption. That feels like a luxury most leaders probably wish they had, or maybe just don't prioritize in today's always-on world. It's real discipline.
It's a profound, deliberate choice. He's prioritizing deep work over just being reactively busy, over getting sucked into the constant demands of the inbox. And apparently, he structures his entire day around three distinct cognitive zones.
Okay, what are they?
There's this deep thinking time, the clarity time we just talked about.
Okay.
That's for strategy, reflection, those high stakes, long term decisions. Then there's execution time. These are focused blocks for the necessary meetings, calls, operational oversight, the day-to-day running of a global giant.
Okay, deep thinking, execution. What's the third zone? You mentioned a secret weapon earlier, which kind of piqued my interest.
Ah, yes. The third zone is learning time.
Learning time.
This is where he actively reads, listens, absorbs information specifically from outside Dell's immediate ecosystem. And this isn't just casual reading, it's a deliberate, active, almost voracious pursuit of knowledge. It's like he's consciously downloading the world's most relevant data directly into his brain.
How voracious are we talking? What kind of stuff is he digging into? It can't just be tech and business news, right?
No, he's apparently a truly remarkable learner. Our sources suggest he reads an astounding 10 to 15 hours per week, and across a remarkably wide range of fields. Not just tech journals or industry reports or business books. He deliberately dives into medicine, economics, geopolitics, even human psychology and philosophy.
Why? What's the thinking there?
His firm belief is that the biggest insights, the real breakthroughs, they rarely come from within your own immediate industry bubble. They come from adjacent fields, from totally different ways of thinking, from recognizing patterns across seemingly unrelated areas.
That's that powerful outside-in approach, isn't it? Bringing in perspectives others might miss, creating an advantage by synthesizing information from unexpected places.
Exactly. He summed it up with a really potent quote. To lead in technology, you must learn faster than the system is changing, and that's very fast.
You have to outlearn the pace of change.
Precisely. And this isn't just a personal habit for him, he actually institutionalizes it. He regularly invites external thinkers, could be scientists, cutting-edge AI researchers, even philosophers or historians for private sessions with his senior leadership team. Yeah. And apparently these aren't just boring briefings. He frames them as debates, as intellectual challenges, provocations designed to accelerate their thinking, to break entrenched assumptions, and really push the boundaries of strategic thought within his top ranks.
Yeah.
It's about actively bringing the outside world into Dell's core strategy discussions.
So it's not just Michael Dell learning constantly. He's intentionally building a culture of continuous learning throughout the whole organization, right from the top.
Absolutely. The sources highlight that at Dell Technologies, getting promoted to executive levels often isn't just about hitting your numbers. It's also tied to how effectively leaders demonstrate they can absorb and apply new knowledge. It's actually baked into the fabric of career progression.
Interesting.
And this relentless curiosity combined with that almost monastic focus we talked about, that's arguably what has allowed Dell to successfully navigate and pivot his business across 3, maybe even 4 distinct decades of massive technological revolutions. Think about it. PCs in the 80s and 90s, servers, and the rise of cloud infrastructure in the 2000s. And now he's deeply invested in AI-enabled infrastructure, edge computing, data management in the 2020s. That kind of longevity and adaptability in such a volatile industry, it's almost unheard of.
So his superpower isn't just like raw intelligence or business savvy. It's this incredible combination of thinking longer term, learning faster, and maybe acting slower, more deliberately than most people, which in our fast-paced React Now world sounds almost backward.
It does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's clearly a deliberate, powerful strategy, especially in an era of constant distraction and pressure for immediate reactions. It's about taking the necessary time to truly understand the complexities, to synthesize huge amounts of information, and then make the right long-term strategic moves, rather than just knee-jerking to every fleeting trend or competitor announcement.
It's not inefficiency. It's profound strategic discipline.
Exactly. And it's clearly paid off for decades.
You know, it's easy to get caught up talking about Dell's products, the computers, the servers, or even the financial wizardry behind it all. But you argue that Dell Technologies' ultimate secret weapon isn't any of that tangible stuff. It's something much less tangible, but maybe far more powerful. It's unique culture.
That's absolutely right. Michael Dell himself said something really insightful. You can't have innovation without mistakes, but you can have a culture where mistakes become fuel. And that gets right to the heart of what makes Dell Technologies so resilient and adaptable over the long haul.
Mistakes become fuel.
Yeah. Think about it. In an industry like tech, which changes at lightning speed, true competitive advantage doesn't just come from having cool patents or a strong balance sheet. It comes from organizational adaptability, the ability to pivot, experiment, evolve quickly. And that adaptability, that willingness to try new things, it fundamentally starts by creating a psychologically safe environment.
Psychological safety. Okay, that sounds a bit like management jargon, maybe. But you're saying it's absolutely fundamental to real-world innovation at a place like Dell. How does that actually work in practice?
Well, Michael Dell put it very simply. Innovation doesn't begin with ideas. It begins with people believing they're allowed to try. If your employees are terrified of making a mistake, if messing up leads to blame or punishment,
They won't take risks.
they won't take risks, they won't experiment, they won't bring forward those half-formed, maybe slightly crazy ideas that could actually be the seeds of the next big breakthrough. So Dell Technologies seems to have systematically built this psychological safety into their culture through concrete, repeatable practices that actively encourage experimentation.
Okay, give us some tangible examples. How do they actually do that? How do they encourage risk-taking?
Well, one really good example is their extensive program of internal hackathons. Apparently, they hold dozens of these every year. And importantly, they're open invite, cross-departmental events. Anyone can join.
So not just engineers.
Not just engineers. People from sales, marketing, even HR can pitch ideas, build quick prototypes, test things out. Some of these ideas might eventually become real products or internal process improvements. Others won't pan out. But the crucial thing is, employees are explicitly rewarded for the willingness to attempt something new and learn from it, not just for hitting a home run every time.
So the effort, the learning itself, is valued. That definitely lowers the fear factor.
Exactly. Another thing they do is have an internal innovation fund. Basically, small pools of seed money granted to teams specifically for experiments that fall outside their normal day-to-day roles. This allows people to pursue passion projects or explore unconventional solutions.
Let out tons of red tape.
That's the key. Minimal bureaucracy, minimal executive gatekeeping. It's basically got a compelling pitch, built a rough prototype, here's a small budget, go see if it works, get some real feedback. It empowers innovation right from the front lines without needing endless sign-offs from layers of management. It's like a grassroots innovation engine running inside the company.
And does this actually translate into results, like more patents, new products, or is it more about making internal stuff run better?
Oh, it absolutely translates into tangible results across the board. As of 2025, Dell Technologies holds something like over 32,000 active patents globally.
Wow, 32,000.
Yeah. And what's really telling is that a lot of these patents don't just come from some centralized, high-powered R&D lab or a few genius engineers. A significant chunk actually originates from frontline teams just finding better, simpler ways to do their jobs. Often small, incremental improvements that, when you scale them across a massive global company, add up to serious competitive advantage. It's innovation bubbling up from everywhere.
Which leads to what you call the culture of velocity. What does that mean day to day at Dell?
Well, the core cultural mantra seems to be something like, fail early, fix fast, iterate forever.
Fail early, fix fast, iterate forever. Catchy.
It is catchy, but it's more than a slogan. It seems to be an operational imperative. It prioritizes the speed of learning from mistakes over trying to achieve some unattainable perfection up front. It means getting something out there, maybe a beta version, testing it with real users, learning quickly from what doesn't work, and then rapidly improving it. That's seen as far more valuable and efficient than spending months or years trying to build the perfect thing in isolation, only to find out the market doesn't want it.
Embracing agility, basically.
He's deeply embracing agility.
And we saw this kind of deliberate cultural engineering happen with a massive EMC acquisition too, right? That wasn't just about merging finances or products. It was a conscious effort to integrate and reshape the cultures.
It absolutely was. When Dell bought EMC, Michael Dell didn't just, combine the balance sheets and shuffle the product lines. He made very deliberate moves to merge and evolve the cultures of these two huge organizations.
Like what?
Well, things like intentionally flattening management layers to cut down bureaucracy and speed up decision-making. Actively integrating R&D teams that used to be in separate silos, forcing them to collaborate and cross-pollinate ideas. And implementing robust systems for bottom-up feedback, ensuring that good ideas could actually surface, collide, and evolve quickly instead of dying on the hind trying to climb a slow, hierarchical ladder.
So fostering a meritocracy of ideas, no matter where they came from in this newly massive company.
That seems to have been the goal, creating an environment where the best ideas win fast.
So this cultural approach The psychological safety, the hackathons failing fast, the integration efforts. That's a huge reason why Dell Technologies, which is, what, nearly 40 years old now,
Getting close.
in this incredibly fast-moving industry, can still manage to out-innovate and outmaneuver companies half its age.
That's precisely it. In Dell's world, innovation isn't some separate department you assign tasks to. It's not just a strategy document that sits on a shelf. It's treated like a reflex, a core survival mechanism. It's deeply embedded in how people are expected to think, communicate, and lead. It really boils down to getting better at getting it right faster than anyone else. That cultural muscle, the ability to adapt, learn, iterate rapidly, that's what keeps them agile, relevant, and fiercely competitive, decade after decade.
Okay, so we've dug into Michael Dell's financial genius, his unique approach to strategic optimization, that incredible personal focus, and the culture of innovation he deliberately built. But to really grasp the full picture, the full arc of his journey and what his legacy might be, we need to look beyond just market share, or even that staggering net worth. There seems to be a deeper purpose driving him.
Absolutely. And Michael Dell himself articulates this. He has this philosophy that clearly extends far beyond just profits. He said, we don't just build infrastructure, we build opportunity.
They build opportunity.
Yeah. And apparently, right from the start of his career, he held this core belief that technology shouldn't be something that widens divides. It should be an equalizer, a tool to bridge gaps, empower people, not create more inequality or isolation.
And that belief really took concrete form with the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, right? It wasn't just some small side project for him.
Not at all. It was established way back in 1999. And the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation has a truly bold, ambitious mission to improve the lives of children and families who are living in urban poverty. They focus mainly on better health, better education, and crucially, better access to information and technology.
And the scale is massive.
The scale's huge. This isn't just a minor charitable effort. As of 2025, the foundation has committed over $2.2 billion globally.
$2.2 billion.
Billion with a B, funding major initiatives in the U.S., in India, South Africa, and other places. This is philanthropy operating at a systemic level.
And it's not just traditional charity like handing out checks, is it? You described it earlier as infrastructure building, not just charity. What's the difference there? Why is that distinction important?
That's a really critical distinction, and it perfectly mirrors Michael Dell's core business philosophy, just applied to social impact. The foundation doesn't just give out money for temporary relief, though they do some of that. Their main focus is on systemic, foundational work, much like how Dell Technologies builds technology infrastructure.
Give me an example.
Okay, so for instance, they've launched sophisticated data platforms to track child health outcomes in real time in certain regions. This digitizes processes that were maybe paper-based, inefficient, or just didn't exist before. That data then allows for much more targeted health interventions and informs better public health policies.
Using data for social good.
Exactly. Or they've spearheaded huge efforts to digitize entire school systems in low-income areas, fundamentally improving access to educational resources for millions of kids. And they've built these scalable public-private partnership models for tackling social problems, models that governments are now actually adopting nationwide in some places. They become blueprints for large-scale impact.
So it's not just about temporary aid. It's about building sustainable, replicable systems that can create lasting generational change.
That's the core idea.
So for Michael Dell, technology should scale justice and opportunity, not just profits. And that mindset, that sense of purpose, it goes beyond his personal foundation and is actually baked into Dell Technologies itself, the company.
It absolutely seems to be. Under his leadership, these kinds of social and environmental commitments aren't just, feel-good marketing slogans or some bullet points in an annual report. They are treated as operational mandates. They're built directly into the company's key performance indicators, their KPIs.
Tied to bonuses.
Oh, tied to executive compensation, apparently? And they're rigorously tracked every quarter, just like financial results. They seem to be non-negotiable parts of how the company actually operates day to day.
Okay, can you give us some concrete examples? What are some of these corporate social responsibility commitments that are actually tied to performance?
Sure. Dell Technologies has made a public commitment to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions across its entire operation by 2050. That's huge. And they have an ambitious interim plan for significant carbon reduction across their whole supply chain by 2030. Think about the complexity of that for a global manufacturer.
That's a massive undertaking.
Massive. On the social equity side, they've set a goal to double the representation of underrepresented groups in their leadership roles by 2030. And maybe the most ambitious one in terms of global reach. They're committed to equipping over 1 billion people around the world with better access to technology, education, and digital skills by the end of this decade.
1 billion people.
1 billion people. These are measurable, deeply impactful goals that show a real institutional commitment to purpose that goes way beyond just the bottom line.
What's also fascinating here, though, is Michael Dell's personal style through all of this. Like we said, he doesn't chase headlines. He's not out there acting like some tech messiah figure. Yet his influence is just profound, almost quietly shaping the digital world we live in.
That's what's so striking, isn't it? His influence is undeniably profound, maybe because it's so grounded, so intentional, so focused on tangible outcomes rather than personal celebrity or hype. He's quietly shaping how entire nations run their digital infrastructure, how hospitals securely store and manage critical patient data, how school districts try to close the technology gap for underserved students, and increasingly how crucial AI systems are being trained, deployed, and governed ethically.
He's not just selling computers anymore. He's building the foundations.
He's building the very foundations of the modern digital world, often completely behind the scenes.
So if we zoom out and connect all these threads, the finance, the optimization, the focus, the culture, the purpose, it seems like Dell made very deliberate choices throughout his entire career. Choosing resilience over maybe fleeting disruption, choosing impact over ego, choosing clarity of purpose over just making noise or chasing public fanfare.
Exactly. And that $116.6 billion net worth, when you look at it through that lens, it isn't just a number representing financial success or a clever business model. It's also a reflection of the profound power that comes from building a company that genuinely aims to mean something. To its markets, sure. To governments, yes. But maybe most importantly, to countless individuals around the world who might never even know his name, but whose lives are fundamentally touched by the digital infrastructure and the purpose-driven initiatives he's set in motion.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into Michael Dell's really extraordinary and, as you said, unconventional journey. And what we've really uncovered is a story that, yeah, it isn't flashy. It doesn't have the big bombastic keynotes or the constant social media drama that seems to define so many modern tech figures.
No, it's quiet.
It's quiet. It's intentional. It's relentlessly focused, almost like you said, monastic in its discipline.
And that quietness, that focus, that's precisely what makes it so powerful. And maybe, in principle at least, so replicable for others. He didn't invent some revolutionary device that instantly took the world by storm.
No billion-dollar VC rounds on day one.
Right. He didn't rely on raising billions in venture capital right out of the gate. He didn't sit around waiting for some mythical, perfect market moment or for gatekeepers to validate his ideas. He just acted early, focused ruthlessly on efficiency, optimized systems that everyone else was ignoring, and carefully cultivated a culture that learned faster than it failed.
That $116.6 billion fortune, it really isn't the result of one single light bulb moment or some lucky break. It feels like the culmination of 4 decades of incredibly clear thinking, deep financial discipline, that unparalleled commitment to continuous learning, and just a steadfast refusal to follow the herd or chase short-term trends. So what can we, the listeners, really take away from this incredibly profound story?
Well, there are a few core lessons that really jump out, and they apply way beyond just the tech world, I think. First, innovation isn't just about invention. It's equally, maybe even more importantly sometimes, about optimization. It's about looking at what already exists, systems, processes, products, and finding ways to make them profoundly, systematically better.
Find the friction and remove it.
Find the friction, remove it. Second, you don't need to start big to build something massive. You need to start sharp. That initial $1,000 in the dorm room, that's the ultimate proof of how resource scarcity can forge incredible discipline and focus.
Constraints breed creativity.
Exactly. And third, real lasting power often isn't loud or ostentatious. It's quiet. It's consistent effort applied with exponential intent, just compounding steadily over time.
Michael Dell built more than just a company. He built this highly efficient machine for solving problems.
Yeah.
And then, it seems, he deliberately aimed that machine at tackling even bigger, more complex challenges, both in business and in society, through his foundation. And maybe the biggest lesson of all for us listening is this. The future doesn't belong only to the disruptors. the ones who want to tear everything down and start over. It also belongs profoundly and enduringly to the builders, the ones who improve what already exists, who refine it, and who just consistently do it better than anyone else.
It really is a powerful testament to that quiet, methodical, long-term approach. Vision plus relentless execution.
So it leaves us with a question, right? If all you had was a room, a desk, maybe just an idea, what would you build? Michael Dell didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for investors to shower him with cash. He definitely didn't wait until he felt ready or had all the answers figured out.
No, he just started.
He just acted with what he had right where he was and with a mindset that, frankly, the established industry wasn't quite ready for yet.
And that principle is universal, isn't it? Whether you're trying to break into tech, start a local community project, or drive change in any field, the power often lies simply in starting, in doing, using the resources you actually have right now, wherever you happen to be.
Exactly. So if this deep dive maybe sparks something in you, a question about your own work, a new strategy for your team, perhaps a shift in how you view your time, your money, your own ambition, hold on to that spark. Don't just feel inspired for an hour. Think about how to act sharper. Think longer term. Move with real purpose and intent. Because, look, your version of that $116.6 billion, it probably won't look anything like Michael Dell's. It might not even be measured in money at all.
Right. Success looks different for everyone.
But if it's built on real purpose and it's done your way with that kind of clarity, that consistency, it will matter. And that, we can definitely tell you, is more than enough.